Hello and welcome to this special edition of our Adapt and Survive video series. I'm here with Julián Díaz, who is the CEO of Dufry Group. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Julián. As is customary in our Adapt and Survive series, we approach members of the travel retail community and ask them how they are dealing with the impacts of the global coronavirus pandemic. My first question to you, Julián, is I know one that I know a lot of people in the industry are keen to know at the moment, as you are such an influential player in the market. How would you describe the company's stability right now, and in terms of cash flow and liquidity, and how has this evolved in the last couple of months?
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is very important, especially in this moment where we just announced the results of the first 6 months. I think what we have done in terms of protecting the company is something that we used to obviously implement also in previous crises. The first is to secure the stability of the cost structure with a significant impact in the fixed part of this cost. And the second is obviously very relevant, is how to protect the liquidity of the company. And within the initiatives that we have done, and probably we will discuss during this conversation, you will see that Dufry is today a stronger company, more solid from the financial point of view, and obviously creating a solid base also for the future in case the situation is not turning around at the speed that we all expect.
Mm-hmm. You announced in June there would be a restructuring of the company, which will come into effect as of the 1st of September this year. I wanted to know how that news has been received by your partners, both suppliers and airports and landlords.
Well, changes are always obviously difficult. In our case, the change is due to the opportunity to improve the efficiency of our way of working, and also to improve the cost structure of the company. During the time that I have been in contact with the different partners, different associated partners to the business, what I heard is obviously first of all surprise, and secondly is questions regarding how this company is going to work in the future. After the explanation, I could say that probably in all the cases, the partners have been satisfied with explanations, and everybody is expecting this company will be faster, will be more efficient, and will be, from the economic point of view, more profitable in the near future.
Okay, and obviously Dufry is very keen to begin trading in all its active channels. But you have to weigh up, as you discussed actually earlier this week, you have to weigh up these on a case-by-case basis in terms of each location and how you're actually going to generate enough sales to make it a good business case. Now, what I wanted to know is, are your airport and landlord partners, are they encouraging you, persuading you, or pushing you to open stores where sometimes you feel like it's not feasible?
No, there is no one single case where we have felt this pressure. The opposite. I think we have been able to really explain and justify why, in specific cases, it was important that we open and we reopen more even space than was expected, depending on the number of passengers, depending on the rent we pay, and depending on the operational cost in each of the locations. I think these type of circumstances are always important because it's also showing the way of the real partnership. Partnership is not just a word, an empty word most of the cases. In these times of turbulences, I have seen that partnership is an action. And this action, it has been very, very good with most, I would say with all the landlords and airport authorities we have had along the years.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because I know in the past you've spoken out about how the Trinity is often a little dysfunctional, and actually, particularly your airport partners and landlords could do more to share the risk in your contracts. But perhaps because of this scenario, do you think it's brought all the partners closer together?
Well, in the short term, I think so. I think we are all looking at how the business, and I am not talking about only the travel retail, duty free or duty paid business, how the business could survive and could be sustainable. And I think this share of views about how to do it is probably the most important thing that I have ever seen in travel retail. Is the first time that in this specific case we have been able to share views about how to create a sustainable business, especially during the worst case scenarios. And I think this is, in my view, one of the lessons that we have learned also in this crisis.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Often I've spoken to many of your peers and those in other parts of the industry during this series about how confinements and restrictions have actually opened up the industry to new ideas and new ways of thinking, and almost how creativity can actually bloom from this scenario and this situation, especially as many of us have had a lot of, quote unquote, downtime to really reflect on how we operate our businesses. So I think that those sentiments obviously concur with the ones I've heard previously in this series. I wanted to talk to you about again about your supplier partners, and I know that many have come to us and sharing their anxieties and their frustrations about the future of their business in travel retail, particularly, and they're saying that perhaps their direct contacts are no longer the same, or perhaps they've gone silent. What is Dufry doing at the moment to reassure its supplier partners that there is a clear path forward?
I think the reinitiation phase has been a good example of collaboration with our suppliers in general. Obviously, there are different sizes, different types, global suppliers, more local suppliers. Talking about the global relationship with suppliers, I would say that in a very short period of time, we have been able to structure a sustainable relationship from now, obviously, to the future that will be uncertain, and so far is very uncertain. But I am pleased to say that we are ready for the reinitiation of all the activities worldwide. As you know, by the end of August, and I comment on that yesterday during the call with investors, we are going to have in operation around 70% of the sales capacity of the company. And this has required a significant, negotiation process and collaboration with especially suppliers in order to create, obviously, first of all, the starting of the reordering system, the restarting of the payment system and how the payments will be implemented, and also the way to improve the quality of the assortment that we are selling. And I would say, in this case, in all the cases, especially with global suppliers, we have been able to reach conclusions and agreements that are in the process to be implemented.
Interesting, you talked about the logistics there and the different payment systems. It brings me on to a question regarding, Brexit, as was dominated our conversations in previous interviews we've had together. As far as I'm aware, the UK government has now missed the deadline to extend the transition agreement beyond December, and if no trade deal with the EU is cemented, it would have to proceed on no-deal terms in some areas, which in theory would mean an immediate return to duty-free. Is Dufry prepared for this scenario?
Well, depending on the scenario, in general terms, I would say that we have been able to work over the past more than 18 months in preparing the company for a possible Brexit in different, obviously, levels of disconnection. With the information we have today, and it's not obviously the most updated information because we are not politicians, but we heard things. Dufry is prepared in all the levels, in pricing policies, in logistics and supply chain, and also in the way of operating the shops, because as you may know, we are operating in more than 400 international locations, and we have a lot of experience in sharing in the same location duty-free and duty-paid activities depending on the level of passengers, international or domestic. I think the plan is there. We have been very focused in developing the plan, as I said, for a long time. Now the focus of the company is different. The focus of the company is how to go through this pandemic with a company that will be stronger from the financial and commercial point of view. But we have not forgotten that Brexit is also a challenge in terms of opportunities in this case, because if finally the version is third country with not obviously differences with other third countries, with the European Union, duty-free will be implemented again, and that is, in my opinion, a very good news for the British customers and also for the customers flying from other European destinations to the UK. And from this case, there are other possibilities with different degrees of implementation that will be obviously depending on the final decision. But in general terms, the answer is yes, we are ready. Second, depending on the level of Brexit implementation at the end, the situation will be different. But from the operational point of view, from the taxes and fiscal point of view, and from the obviously recognition of the complexities of starting from a situation where it's a common market to another different situation, we are ready.
And touching on obviously the European business, the quarantine measures brought in by the UK government on Spanish holidaymakers British holidaymakers coming back from Spain to Britain. Obviously, that was perhaps unexpected and obviously not wanted. But I understand from what you touched on in the analyst results call that actually the diversions of people from flights to Spain to other countries has actually seen a slight positive impact to some of your other locations. Is that correct?
Well, probably there is not a 100% connection between both events, but it seems like at the time that this decision was announced, destinations like Greece, Turkey, Portugal have been positively impacted in terms of number of people. Maybe they were increasing in any case, but by coincidence or by whatever, the situation of the possible challenge to Spain is at this specific moment in time recover in terms of traffic in other European destinations.
Okay. And in terms of your South American business, obviously we know the situation there in terms of coronavirus is very grave in some parts. Particularly, but there was a bright spot potentially in Mexico where Dufry was able to open its Cancun stores, which must have been significant for yourselves. In terms of the rest of South America, though, I imagine that Dufry's recovery will be, well, it's a longer-term recovery in this part of the world. Do you have any, are you able to share any sort of some forecasts on that recovery in that part of the world?
Regarding Mexico, I would say that it's performing obviously quite well, not compared with obviously what we could be in a normal situation, but quite well compared with the rest of the world, because all the shops in duty free are today open in all the destinations, and I think the level of business is more than the average in the company today. South America is supported today by the duty paid business. As you know, in countries like Brazil, more than 80% of the traffic is domestic, and domestic has been open and is still open, and in fact we have been very close to the level of sales in duty paid we used to have pre-pandemic. The problem is international traffic, and this remains a significant challenge because still obviously there are very few countries that accept the intercontinental flights or accept international flights in the region. I think it's going to take longer than probably other regions, but as an announcement, I would say that the 1st of August, the situation started to normalize with international flights from especially Guarulhos in Brazil to the rest of the world. And I think this is a very good news because it has been 2 months that this type of information was not positive, like in this case. How many passengers and how important will be the volume of business is still unknown. But I guess that as soon as the reinitiation of flights, international flights, is happening, the business obviously will gradually start. The information is also clear. We have not closed down the shop in Brazil on any regard. The shops have been open in the main shops, I mean, the small shops, yes, in Guarulhos or in the other impossible countries.
That must have again been a bright spot for Dufry when there have been so many store closures. But as you explained again during the results call, you plan to open another 250 to reach 50% of Dufry's global network by the end of August. Now, I'm guessing that you're still singing from that hymn sheet. You're still on track for that milestone at the moment.
Yes, this is correct. It's 50% of the total number of shops will be open by the end of August. As I said, 70% of the potential sales compared with 1 year ago. And our intention is try to accelerate in all the locations where the number of passengers will justify to obviously the opening. I believe that we need to normalize the life as soon as possible. And I suggest that we all do the same thing. Is we cannot, go in circles where the only thing we are talking about is the challenges we have or the opportunities that we are losing. I think the opportunities are there, and we need to implement as much as possible initiatives in the companies, especially in travel retail, for continuing as much as possible a normal life. And for me, the normal life is cash registers open, shops open, and customers going through the shops. And I can tell you one thing: I have been traveling a lot since the moment the flights were initiated in Europe. I've been in many countries, understanding how the operations are going through this reopening phase and what is the situation regarding the customers. And I can tell you one thing: customers are behaving exactly the same than before. There is nothing that will tell me at this moment when I meet these customers and I talk with them regarding what is the behavior. They are behaving exactly the same. We have statistics, and I mentioned one of them yesterday. 80% of the passengers that have been a customer in Dufry in the past are thinking that they are not going to change their behavior when they are in an airport, especially related with travel, retail, duty-free and duty-paid. And I think this is a very good news. There are obviously very bad news, and the most important one is the lack of passengers, the number of passengers. But I think, and I hope that as soon as the customers are used to travel again, they are obviously feeling that the situation is gradually normalizing, the passengers will come back. And I think this is a fact, it's not a guess.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, you spoke about the survey that Dufry conducted about how you think customers are going to behave once recovery continues and more stores reopen. And as you've just mentioned, this is very positive from the feedback you've received. And again, we've been talking to our partners, Mindset, and they indeed have concluded the same, especially in terms of the core duty-free categories such as tobacco, wine and spirits, fragrances and cosmetics. I know that you mentioned again during your results call that luxury potentially there may be a lower appetite for luxury goods at this moment in time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the spend per head is lower. Again, from the results call we heard that this has actually increased over this time. So would you concur that again it's the core duty-free categories that seem to be persevering at this time?
Well, it's still early to confirm anything, but basing the information that we have collected other crises, I think the core categories, tobacco, spirits, perfume and cosmetics, and food and confectionery in general, confectionery, are very resilient in terms of downturns in the business. Mm-hmm. And I think the most affected at that time were everything related with jewelry, fashion, watches. But during that time, because when the system reinitiated again, everything was obviously accelerated in terms of sales. I think during the core of the crisis, this is the behavior in the past. Now it's different. We don't know. But I think let's wait, obviously, a couple of months for understanding the reopening of the shops, because today the information we are collecting is based on the type of shops that we have opened. Mm-hmm. And the most important part of the shops that we have opened at the beginning were convenience stores. And in these stores, we don't sell, typical duty-free products. We sell convenience products. Now that we have a significant number of duty-free and duty-paid standard products, I think we will be able to really understand better the evolution of the product mix. In 1 or 2 months, we will be able to share this with you.
Mm-hmm. I have one last question for you, and it relates to the cruise business, which again, like the other, travel channels has been really badly hit and has received quite a lot of criticism from various government bodies on how they dealt with the crisis. Do you think this will have an effect on the long-term propensity to cruise and to spend in cruise?
Well, it's difficult to say, Charlotte. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I think this business has been historically also very resilient because they are able to manage properly, passengers profile, pricing policies, promotions. I think they have been more active than any other channel in travel retail, especially, in order to really generate demand. And I think they are very experts in generating demand. What is going to happen in the future? First of all, we need to see obviously the system reopen again and see what the evolution is. In my view, I cannot tell you anything specific because I don't know. I am not an expert in the sector. In terms of the retail, what we have seen in the past is a very fast recovery when the crisis happened. Now, I don't know. I cannot tell you.
Things are uncertain, but this is, again, part of the reason why we started this video series, Adapt and Survive, is to talk to members of the travel retail community and see firsthand what experiences they are going through right now and how indeed they are adapting and surviving. I just wanted to ask you for one last comment on perhaps if you could give us some positive message or some advice for the industry at this time. Again, because Dufry is one of the most influential companies in the industry. I think what you say will be listened to very, very closely.
Well, I first of all, I am not the person to recommend or to advise anybody because obviously we are all having businesses and responsibilities, and we need obviously first to understand what we need in order to survive and to protect our shareholders' value. I think in terms of Dufry, not for the rest of the business, what we have done is a tremendous effort for creating a sustainable company in a situation where you face zero sales, more or less. Zero sales with very close to 40,000 employees worldwide, with more than 2,600 shops that were gradually closed. And during certain time, you don't have one single idea or one single, opportunity to understand what the future is going to look like. The reality is that what we have done is a tremendous effort in changing the company in 2 months. And it was possible. It was possible because the quality of the management team of this company and also the effort and the quality of all the employees. And I think I feel very proud of this more than anything that we have done in the history of the company. We have done a lot of things. We started in 2003 having 3% of the market. We have been reached 20% of the market. And in these 17 years, we have been able to turn around a company that was absolutely in a very weak situation in the largest company ever in travel retail. And this is happening because the employees and the management team of this company. And now, where the situation is probably the most challenging situation in the history of the company, I feel more proud for what happened during the last 2 months than whatever happened during the last 17 years, because we have created a more solid financially and commercial company.
Thank you for that message. I'm sure all your employees will greatly appreciate hearing that. I'm sure they hear it frequently from yourself anyway. Thank you once again for taking the time to speak with us today, and wish you all the luck that we're all going to need in the coming months, and I'm sure we'll see each other on the other side.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. It's always a great pleasure to really share these views with you. I always appreciate your attention and your support, and all the best from my side.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.